Something I hear and read way more often than I think I would is the statement the 2010s were humans' most progressive decade, meaning the point we were at, January 1st, 2010 to the 31st of December 2019 would have been the biggest jump in human innovation, in human progress, in human advancement. And I think that's just a scar, basically, because if you were kicking about in 2010, you would have heard the same thing about that decade. If you were kicking about in 2000, you would have heard the same thing about the 90s, and so on and so on and so on and so on. The only grasp we have for progress is the past. And we only look at the past recent. We only look at this decade. We're not comparing it to this decade. And every single decade gets this title, depending on where you are in time. The only decade people might say wasn't a progressive decade was the 40s. And then you look at the 40s retrospectively. Yes, a lot of bad things happened in the 40s, but think of the advancements we made in the 40s. Especially with the wars going on, the scientific advancements that war gave us, the medical advancements that war gave us. It has still progression, yes, not on the morally right side of things most of the time in that decade, but still, if you're going to sit there and say it was our most progressive, yet exclude a progressive decade, then you're backfiring upon yourself. And a second point to counteract this is, what do you define as important innovation? Is it the amount of sort of inventions that decade? Is it the amount of advancements we made in fields? But then you think some advancements we made in the last 10 years, how to do better Botox, how to gain huge followings on social media, how to do this, that and the other, which are completely irrelevant to, essential living. And then you have the more essential things, maybe you only take those into account. And if you're only taking them into account, how do you rank them? The vaccine for smallpox was hugely important, yet so was the mission to Mars. How can you possibly weigh them up against each other? They affect two completely different things and still both better humanity. There are so many advancements we cannot compare them. So why sit there and say, yes, this port of time was the best, the most progressive. This was that was this, and all the other things you can say. You say that when every other period fits that title, because that title is just filler. It's not got any meaning behind it, because we cannot give meaning or value to a statement like that. And we get it so often because we always want to look back at the most recent period and never anything else. Because we're scared to look too far back. We only have the memories of the last recent period. And we can only base the future off of the near past. So it really conflicts us. We should drop this title altogether, because it's never going to be true. Unless one day we, ascend every human. There's only one type of situation that could bring us to the most progressive, which is literally if we got one decade we advance to a type 3 civilization from 0.7. Even if we jump from 0.7 to 1 to 2, that doesn't balance up so well. So what do? We can stop saying that, yes, but how do we base our innovations? We don't base our innovations. We do what we do because we're doing it. And we don't want to compete. We're not competing. When we create something, it's to create the thing. It's not to compare, not to contrast, it's not to challenge anything else. When someone is working for the coronavirus vaccine now, they don't want to beat the people who made the polio vaccine. They just want to make the vaccine. They're not trying to be more progressive. They're not trying to be an improvement on your time in the past. They're trying to be an improvement of their time. They're trying to move forward for the sake of moving forward, not for the sake of being the most advanced. It's for the sake of keeping people alive, for staying alive, for having a good life, for keeping life quality up. So we can't sit there and label this, that or the other, and we can't compare what is completely incompatible to two different separate things. All we need to do is make sure we're making the right decisions and going the right way, and avoiding meaningless, nonsensical filler and titles and labels for no reason, because they're the things that end up forcing us to be stuck in the past. So make sure your next decision, your next creation, your next idea comes from necessity, not need to be better. Necessity, essentiality, rather than a vain, advancement sense. You want to be better, the best. Do it because you need to do it, not because it's appealing to when people look back to the decade as a whole as one major discovery. Do it because it needs to be done and you want to do it and you have to do it.